All right, good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock, and we are now starting the May 9th, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Can we call for roll, please?
Yes, Ishmael Harris.
Here.
David Barrow.
Here.
Ashley Henson.
Here.
Jordan Scott.
Here.
Gary Moss. Here. Patrice Parsons. Here. And then we also have Keith Alborn.
Here.
And Mr. Scott Robichaud.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, I'd like to welcome Keith and Scott to the Planning and Zoning Commission. All right, on to item 2, citizen comments. We have Pablo Serna. Good evening. Please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Pablo Serna, 1104 Hill Street. And what I wanted to mention today was the role of civic leadership, and specifically how I see it, it should be, is to uphold the will of the people. Many people spend a lot of time on preparing documents such as the future land use map, the B3 code, place type maps, character district maps, network transportation plans. There's a lot of work, a lot of time going back 10 years. And I think it's important as planning and zoning commissioners that you look at those documents so that when developments come before you that request a change, even drastic changes, as we're going to see later tonight, that you look at that and really ask, is this what the people of Bastrop want? You just have to look in this room, and I think you're going to find out they don't. So as commissioners, you have an important job, a historic moment, and I really believe that your legacy and how you vote tonight will follow you, and everybody will know. I mean, the people of Bastrop will speak tonight. There are great ideas. There's some great visions. I'm an architect, and we love to draw pretty pictures, so you're going to see some great pictures. But you have to ask yourself, who lives here? And who's going to live close to this? And you have to ask yourself, what is the will of the people? And the will of the people is very much identified in those documents. And if it's not there, and you're asking for a zoning change, you have to really ask yourself, is that the will of the people? And I believe it's not. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Is there anyone else? All right. So we have no more citizen comments. On to item 3A. Consider action to approve meeting minutes from the April 25th, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
I make a motion to accept.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we need to call for roll?
Ishmael Harris.
Yes.
David Barrow.
Yes.
Ashley Henson.
Yes.
Jordan Scott.
Yes.
Patrice Parsons.
Yes.
Gary Moss.
Yes.
Keith
Yes.
Alborn. And Scott Robichaud.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alondra. All right, on to item 3B, hold a public hearing and consider action on a recommendation for Bastrop Gateway Zoning Concept Scheme, changing the zoning from 31.4559 acres out of the A11 Bastrop Town Tract from P2 rural to P5 core to a planned development district with a base district of P5 core as shown at attachment 2, located at the corner of Pitt Street and Highway 71 within the city limits. Ms. Kennedy, do we need to open up the public hearing?
I believe
Or-
at time of citizen comment, correct? Yes,
Go
so
ahead.
we'll wait to open up the public
Okay,
hearing until
all
we
right.
take the citizen comments.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
for now, we're good.
It's on you.
Yes, sir. So good evening, commissioners. Tonight in front of y'all have the Gateway Project, which we saw at not the last P&Z meeting, but the meeting prior in March. The item is coming back to P&Z after notification was called into question. Instead of trying to decipher that question, we decided it was best to just bring it back to P&Z and start the process all over again. Better to be safe than sorry. So you can see here on the location map, the location for Gateway is at the corner of Pitt and 71. Here's the ownership exhibit where you can see the two different ownership groups that have part in Gateway. The light beige is one ownership group, and the darker beige is the rest. Here's the summary of the original concept plan that was brought to you back in March that shows the different uses on each of the different parcels. Let's see. Between the last meeting and now, the developer has met with the community as well as gone through City Council, where it was remanded back to city staff. It's coming back to y'all today because of that notification. So here you can see the original concept plan that was proposed to y'all back in March. Later on, the developer will show you a new concept plan that they have come up with based on citizen comments. So concerns were raised by the neighborhood in regards to impervious cover at the requested 90%, the location of the hotel, as well as tree preservation. To address those concerns,
Kennedy, can you talk a little bit slower? My ears listen slower than you're talking.
Yes, ma'am, sorry about that. So there were the items that the citizens had expressed concern about, such as the impervious cover, the height, and the location of the hotel. So the developers have indicated that they're willing to move the hotel closer to 71. Currently, the hotel is up here by the residents. They're willing to move it down farther, which you will see in the concept plan that the applicant shows to y'all later. They've also indicated that they're willing to create the 50-foot building setback, so it'll be on the eastern side. It'll be a 50-foot building setback here, as well as a 50-foot tree buffer by the residents. So it won't be a full tree buffer, just by where the residents currently are. Let's see. Also, when it comes to trees, they've indicated that based on the tree survey.
Can I pause you for a second?
Yeah.
Colin, is there a way that we can get it up here for us, please? Thank you, sir.
I love technology. All right, so based on they will be doing a tree survey later on in the process. Based on that is how will they determine the exact layouts of the building. They have indicated that they want to preserve as many trees as possible, and so in that 50-foot tree buffer, they will most likely be leaving the original trees instead of pulling them out and replanting them, which isn't desired by anybody. And then on moving along, so we have these are the same exhibits that y'all saw last time, the phasing as well. And so here's the future land use plan that shows Gateway. It's currently as transitional residential. Concerns were raised on how it meets the land use plan. The future land use map shows it future transitional residential. When the land use plan was created, it was under the old zoning, so it wasn't P1 or P5. It was SF7, SF9, and it was different zoning categories essentially. Allowed uses in transitional residential were such as SF7 through SF9, which is single family, just depends on the classification, as well as multifamily, and planned development. Currently, they are working on a planned development district. Let's see. So the bulk of the commercial is towards 71. You can see right here. This is where the bulk of the commercial is. There is a little bit here and a little bit here. The bottom lots are already zoned P5, and the rest of them are currently P2. Those are the ones that are trying to go to P5. In P5, the commercial uses that they're asking for are allowed besides the height. Let's see. Yes, sir.
One's on the bottom,
Yes.
or those
These-
the three across?
Yes, these three bottom lots are currently zoned P5. It is the remainder of the lots that are zoned P2 currently. They're asking for everything to be P5 with the PDD overlay. Let's see. Uses allowed under the old zoning would be things such as apartment complexes or condo styles, which is what they're proposing on the northern portion. And then the southern portion already has commercial allowed there, and that's what's proposed most of there. So the two main lots that would be in question are the far left lot, which they're proposing for commercial use, as well as the far right lot on the bottom. Let's see. Right. And so we also have the applicant here. They have an updated presentation they have the same presentation with some added things in there that they have in order to kind of try to meet some of the needs of the community. So I'm going to bring the applicant up now, and then we can ask some questions.
Good evening. Can you please reintroduce yourself and let us know who you're with again?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Stephen Beagle, architect. I direct Place Designers based in Round Rock with offices in Houston and Austin. With me is Philip Wonke, who is our landscape architect and land planner. Also, Liz Horvath, an architect who runs our Austin office. So together, we are the primary team that has been working closely with the ownership group. The Avicii LLC group owns the 3 lots that Kennedy referred to behind Buc-ee's on Pitt Street. The other 7 lots are owned by a group known as Austin Bastrop LLC. So these 2 corporations have come together to propose the PDD. Refresh me on how to advance.
The large button in the center.
That'll work. The original proposal.
Can I pause you 1 second,
Yes,
please?
sir.
Colin, I'm gonna call on you again. Can we zoom in? Is there a way to zoom in? If not, that's fine. Right there, yes.
That'll
And then I think everyone else can see a little bit better out there as well. Thank you, sir. You're the man.
Thank you. Referencing the presentation that Kennedy made a short time ago, this was the original ask. This was the original concept plan that you saw 2 months ago when the commission acted on it unanimously and sent it forward. We have had several meetings with the neighbors, with concerned citizens. There was a forum at the convention center where some 300 people showed up, and it was, I would say, a lively exchange of views on where we're going and where we should be going. The design team has taken all of this to heart very seriously, and we have amended the plan considerably. What doesn't change is the original ask, and I would, with respect to my colleague who spoke a minute ago, the other architect in the room, we are basing the ask on P5. We are taking liberty to request very slight variances from the existing P5 along 71 and the future P5, which is already in the future land use plan. So our base zoning will remain P5. Our variances that we've requested are height, impervious area coverage, and density. Those are the 3 primary concerns here. We've modified this original concept plan, and I think I can advance that. How does that work? There we go. You've seen the phasing diagrams. I won't repeat myself here. For the benefit of the audience, we'll run quickly through the typology. Each lot is represented in the yellow block to the left. So this is the corner of Pitt Street and 71. And the imagery are merely the concepts that may eventually show up in the form of architectural typology on these sites. I'm running through them one at a time just as idea slides that represent the approximate density and approximate utilization of these lots. Recognize that the P5 covers many uses. Many residential uses, many commercial uses are already permitted in P5. So the specific uses that we're showing are those we feel are best suited for the area. They are not necessarily carved in stone. The uses in P5 are the umbrella uses. So anything that's permitted in P5 would be able to be built ultimately. I'm flashing through this quickly in order to get to the revised site plan. Here are some of the images that you've seen before. Pitt Street to the far left corner. The lower corner lot, the southwest lot, is where most of the water flows from this site down to the corner of Pitt and 71. You see the retail site above, and the taller buildings in the distance are a total of 7 stories, 2 stories of parking, and 5 levels of residential apartments. And there are reasons for the 5, and we can get into that during discussion. Renderings of pathways through the development. This is behind the child care center that's been proposed. The child care center, again, the retail center behind Buc-ee's, and back into the typology. The biggest concern that we heard over the past 8 weeks was relative to the hotel and our original proposal for 12 stories on that hotel, and the location of the hotel site, which was on the highest point of ground within the 31 acres. We have changed this, and we've changed it considerably. These slides were the original concepts for the hotel and a potential convention center down the slope. We have changed this. I'm flashing forward all the way. These are the slides that show the pathways and connectivity. Here is the revision, if we can blow that up. There we go. Now we have to assume I know how to work the light. There we go. All right, the hotel was here. It has been slid down the hill, off the high point of the slope. Nothing else changed with respect to the utilization of the site. This converted to apartments and single-family residential uses. We protect the highest point on the site, the escarpment, and we set back off of the neighbor's property and off of everything east by 50 feet with an existing tree buffer to be augmented by additional plantings. That we did in response to some serious concerns from the neighborhood up on Lost Pines. Not much else changed, nor did we feel it needed to change. Let's see if I can get that. The retail along 71 is still already permitted under P5. All of this use, including a hotel use, including a convention center use, which is a public use, is permitted under P5. So the variance itself is really the height and the impervious area coverage and the density and the obvious restrictions that will come upon us later when we complete our traffic impact analysis and our tree survey. Trying to advance one more time. Oh, I guess I have to shrink it down. There we go. So the updates. This, you can blow that one up. Thank you. This potential site plan is similar to the last one, almost identical, and all this does is show the addition of the convention center all the way into the southeast corner of the site. So the hotel has come down the hill, and the connected hotel to the convention center here. The 50-foot buffer is still here. This slide merely illustrates the location, potential location of a future convention center, all under a P5 use. All right, if we back out, I can go forward. Maybe.
Are you trying to go back?
No, I'm trying to go, I think I can go ahead to the videos if they're there.
Okay, so Colin, if you'll pull up that video.
We've illustrated this in video form. The music might put some to sleep, but we'll try to go quickly through it. This as seen from the corner of Pitt and 71 from the southwest. This shows the first phase development, which are the 2-story retails behind Buc-ee's, and then the 7-story residential structure, which includes the 2 stories of parking below, 7 residential above, and the pool deck, which would look out to the west. This is a long pit street with your back to Buc-ee's looking back into the site. The Child Care Center, and the Child Care Center is a speculative use. It's permitted, it's a permitted use, but this could be a medical center, an urgent care center. It could even be a retail use. The theory is under the densification metrics, as the site densifies with apartments, the daycare will be needed. Here we're showing the 12-story hotel, and this is a revision to what you saw earlier. The convention center idea is now mimicking the South Texas silos, rice silos, and other silos in order to make it appear much more like South Texas and the Bastrop area. The hotel is still 12 stories as shown, and we've been in discussion with staff about reducing that height. So, in summary, we have modified the plan significantly. We have clarified with staff various issues. We have consented with, in our discussions with staff, to reduce the height of the hotel. We've moved the location of the hotel further to the south. Our original request for a 90% impervious area coverage can be reduced to 80%. It will be reduced to that anyway once the tree survey is complete and we've identified which trees should be saved and worked into the plan. Other than that, the ask is the same. Did I leave anything out, Kennedy?
I don't think so.
So I'd be happy to answer questions. Yes, sir?
Go ahead.
You moved the hotel down the hill. What's the difference in the elevation from where it was?
It's about 30 feet vertically.
30 feet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You say you were talking about reducing the height to what?
We've talked about 10, and we can live with 10.
10 stories?
10 stories. As you're well aware, the height and the number of rooms drive the economy when it comes to the hotel, who the flag is, what their needs are. 12 stories was aggressive, admittedly. It exceeded the capability of the fire department in terms of the ladder truck.
That was my next question.
Yeah. So 12 is too much. 10 we can live with. There have even been suggestions of 8. Bear in mind that the lower we go, in order to get the room count that's required, we have to go horizontally. So we cover more ground, which impacts impervious area.
What's the height that the fire department can service now?
I defer to Andres on that. He's got
5 stories?
5.
5.
So with that, that would mean it would require for us to get a whole new ladder truck,
right. And
or y'all to get a new ladder truck.
well, yes.
We shouldn't have to get one, right, to accommodate for y'all.
We have estimates of our financial involvement in this. And again, it depends on the density and your recommendation going forward to council. If the entire development as amended is approved, the infrastructure cost on-site and off-site is still estimated to be about $34 million, inclusive of a new fire truck. So we've worked these things into the PID. We haven't sat down and fleshed out the details of the PID. These are all estimates until such time as the actual engineering work is done. So we know where our cut and fill is, we know where the road sections are, we know how much detention we're dealing with on each site. But the cost of a fire truck is in the PID, which will be taken up at a later time.
I'm sure we have plenty more.
I have a question. Sorry, David.
Ladies first.
So we're still waiting on a transportation study, and we're still waiting on a tree survey.
That's correct.
Okay. What happens if, the transportation comes in and says, you can't have 1,300 cars moving out of this place every day?
Then it doesn't happen.
Okay, then what happens if we've changed, I need to understand this. What happens if we've changed the zoning? This project dies for whatever reason. It's now changed. What does that mean for the potential future development on that property that we don't really know about right now sitting here?
Yeah, so the entitlements will stay with the land, but for example, like you said, if the traffic impact analysis determines that it can't work for the next person either unless they change something tremendously.
And the tree survey, I'm personally concerned about the trees. When you look at the character map that is in the B3 code, this area is the Lost Pine District. And we're basically getting ready to change that pretty big time. So I guess I have questions about why would we want to change the character that has really been seriously considered by the city? And I keep hearing from citizens that they're very concerned about that. They don't want to have something that's called the gateway to Bastrop that's stepped in and taken out a lot of the pines. The pines are very distinctly Bastrop. So I have those concerns. I have concerns about the Lost Pine District, and I have concerns about transportation. Is it possible for us to wait to vote on this particular zoning change until after that's completed, after those things have been completed?
I will.
Well,
Excuse me, please hold your applause. Thank you.
so let me respond first. I'm sure staff has additional comment. This issue is about the zoning. Even if we did nothing, a traffic impact analysis would be required to do anything going forward under P2 or under P5. What we're talking about is the umbrella. We're only recommending or asking for the umbrella to be changed in two ways: height and impervious area, and we've even backed off on the impervious area back to the P5 limit of 80%. Anybody who builds anything, even us today without being here, would still have to do a traffic impact analysis, would still have to do a tree survey, and we'd still have to identify those trees to be saved. So the exercise there is the same. It doesn't impact whether you approve or recommend approval of the zoning or not.
Understand. When you say those trees will be saved, what does that mean?
Depending on well, there are criteria in Austin that apply to this. The same criteria have been adopted here. There are heritage trees, there are significant trees, and there are trees that are neither of those. So it's all about caliper, what the species of tree are, and Philip is the expert here, so I don't want to get too far out on a limb, no pun intended. But we have the ability to identify them. The heritage trees would be saved, so that plan that you're looking at will change depending on where those trees are to be saved.
So the trees have to stay in the same place? You
Yes.
can't dig them up?
We can dig them up with certain concessions. A tree can move if you plant 20 more, or a tree can be relocated. Heritage trees, hard to relocate those. The heritage trees will be an asset to the site that will be designed around, for the most part, unless there's one that just can't be that. We have to also assess the health of the trees. There are some heritage trees that are 100 years old that may not last long. So part of the tree survey is to assess the health and vitality and future of that tree.
Jordan,
thank
did
you.
you have something?
Yeah,
Thank you,
so,
Pete.
so you're not going to be asking for the impervious cover amendment or anymore, are you?
There's a staff recommendation here that the original request of 90 be reduced to 80.
Okay.
And we're okay with that.
And 80 is what we're currently at with the B3 code, right?
For P5, yes,
For
80 is the
P5,
maximum.
okay.
That's right.
And off topic here, I believe that some of your buildings, when you say 7-story, it's not actually going to be 7 stories tall. You're going to have some of the building dug below the surface, correct?
That is correct. Many of the structures that we
Okay.
showed are on a steep slope, and it will be cut back into the hillside where it needs to be. We have asked across the board that instead of a 5-story max, which is what the P5 allows, we would like a 7-story max for these very functional reasons. In residential development, multifamily residential development, many developers know this, you can go as high as 5 stories with wood framing under the code as long as you sprinkle closets, bathrooms,
Yeah.
little spaces. So your maximum yield for the minimum footprint relating to impervious area is 5 stories. In order to get that density on these sites, you have to park it. The parking, in order to minimize impervious cover, has to be put somewhere. If we tuck 2 levels of parking under the building on a podium deck, it minimizes the footprint of the
Yeah.
building and maximizes the yield.
So, for example, this podium deck that you're asking for 7 stories, how many of those stories are actually going to be exposed above ground? Do you know?
Well, as the video, I think, correctly illustrated, if there's 2 levels of parking, part of it will be in the hillside,
Yeah.
part of it will be exposed.
Yeah.
And if there are 5 stories of residential construction above, 7 stories will be exposed on the lower side.
Okay. Okay.
Jordan, go ahead. Scott, did you have something down there?
Yeah, I have a couple of observations and potentially a suggestion. So my observation is that Bastrop does not have the fire capability for buildings, I question even at 5 stories, but certainly not above 5. I have 2 adult children that are firefighters, so I have a secondary bit of knowledge that it's not just a fire truck, because the skill set required to fight a fire, sprinklers or not, in a building from 5 to 7, 10, or 12, it's a completely different skill set. So the city needs to consider that. It's not just you get gifted a fire truck and everything is suddenly okay. You're going to need different staff and/or training, and you have to maintain that. It is a different item. So that's an observation and a commentary for the city. My suggestion might be, we already have a convention center. So your point of, you need the height to get the room density to make it economically sensible, I think we all understand that. Why not combine the convention center and the hotel footprint just to be a hotel at 5 stories and get the same room volume you're looking for, but as a resident, I'm questioning what we're going to do with a second convention center. We already have one that isn't 7 days a week, busy and bustling, so we'd have a second one. It just seems a little bit of a stretch.
Right.
So that's the suggestion, if you will, of a concession.
And thank you. We've done enough of an economic study about the future growth of Bastrop. That's why we're here. We see a convention center use that will accommodate 1,000 people at an event, at a single event. We see a need beyond what this current convention center will do. This one does not have a commercial kitchen, and everybody knows its drawbacks. This one doesn't work to attract large-scale conventions or conferences or even a wedding ceremony or a wedding reception. So this one is not very useful compared to what it could be, and that's what we're talking about here. What could it be? Your point about combining the uses, it's an anticipated question to this extent. The convention center and the hotel, 2 separate functions. The hotel is not dependent upon an event. The event is not dependent upon the hotel. There'd be two separate operations. They're complementary. The convention center will benefit from the hotel. People can stay overnight, etc. But they're two separate operations. So to combine them into a single structure doesn't work for certain potential flags.
Okay, so then we're gonna let David go, but because I know he's been waiting, but I just want to say this to your point, Scott, about the fire department, because you didn't even talk about that, man. You spent like 3 minutes talking about the convention center, and I think the biggest concern for the citizens of Bastrop is one of them is our fire department, right? We have several other neighborhoods that are going to be built. We're already looking at concerns about our emergency response, right? This development over here potentially could have 2,500, 3,000 people in it at one time, right? If all the residents are filled, hotel rooms are filled, it's nothing new down here for a fire to happen and it grab a hold of things around it. That is a lot for what we have and what we're already trying to establish. So kind of thoughts in my mind are, what kind of contributions are we looking at because the city is going to only be able to afford so much and bring in so much for our emergency response, right? But we do need programs. We do need different services and trainings, right, to have us pretty much state of the art. And so throwing things like that in there without us being fully prepared is setting us up for bad things to happen. But I'll get off of it and let David go ahead. I'm sorry, David. Go ahead.
Okay, I have 4 questions. 1 is water, 2 is, 1 is trees, 2 is water, 3 is property, 4 is code, if we want to look at it in that order. So we've already spoken about the traffic impact study and that if there was too much traffic, this could be dead in the water. This project could be dead in the water, correct?
The uses we've proposed, the density we've proposed could be dead in the water. If it is dead in the water based upon a traffic impact analysis, that if it's too expensive to put a light out on Chestnut, if it doesn't make sense at this density, based on the traffic impact analysis, the proposal would come back and change. And it's not a zoning proposal at that point, it's a construction proposal, and we would be proposing less density.
Okay, so the tree, if we have enough 18 caliper and 24 caliper trees that are on this property, would that kill this development after the tree survey is done in that same rationale?
In the same rationale, same answer, it would change the use, it would change the construction side. Within the context of the zoning, it would reduce the density and it would reduce the footprints of the various buildings proposed.
Okay. Question 2, water. Have you guys spoken about to the city engineer and even just questioned about, like, if we get an inch of rain, what already happens on the property, and then when you add 80% impervious cover, concrete, what's going to happen with that inch of rain?
Early on, we addressed this. It's a 2-part question. We've addressed the potable water issue and the availability of water and sewer at the site with the city engineer. We've talked about those needs. We're looking at something like 800 LUEs. However, your answer about drainage, it has been a rule, it was discussed very early on, that each individual parcel among the 10 in question here must detain water on its individual site. And that is part of the PDD application. Whatever happens from the sky above has to be addressed site by site and detained on that site. What that's going to do, back to the height question, is cause subterranean detainage on some sites, depending on density, and terraced subterranean detention, which then increases by some dimension how high we can go.
Okay, thank you very much. Number 3, the property. Did you look at any other land in Bastrop County?
Yes.
Why was this the winner compared to those?
Several reasons. Proximity to the downtown area, the crest of the hill as you come over east to west, that vista that opens up looking to the west where you can see for 10 miles on a clear day, that the crest of that hill in our mind was the gateway to Bastrop going west. It's also the gateway leaving west to east. That hillside is developable. It is zoned correctly at P5. We're asking for a few variances. The future land plan has it at P5. That's why we're treating P5 as base. And it confines growth for Bastrop to an area where you have transportation, Route 21, Route 95, Route 71. You have access rather than supporting the sprawl out into the suburban area. We looked at some suburban areas, cheaper land, but it doesn't make sense to do this there.
Cool, thank you. And final question is related to the code, and Kennedy may be better able to answer this, but why would we need to do a PDD? Why can't we just follow the B3 code on this? And what would be the difference between those two developments?
So if you're just straight B3, it wouldn't have any of the variances that they have attached. It would be required to follow the 330 block grid. Some of the other, let me just pull up some of the other variances that are requested. I think it's the height as well. Let me see. The alley location, lot coverage, but since they're going back to 80%, that's not an issue anymore. So it would be the same. With the B3 code, build to line is 80%, so essentially all of the buildings have to be at the front of the building has to be 80% at the frontage line. With that, it kind of makes it a little difficult because just based on the orientation of the building in regards to the land, as well as the parking location. B3 has the parking in the back only. You can only park in the back in P3, or sorry, not P3, in the B3. And so it's just the variances that they have listed would be the difference between straight P5 zoning and what they're requesting.
So just to clarify, is Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart under the B3 code? Are they applicable because they have parking in front?
They are pre-B3.
They're pre-B3.
And
Thank
when
you
it comes to
very much.
Lowe's, they have a PDD. Or Lowe's doesn't have a, does Burleson East have a PDD? Yeah, so Burleson East has a PDD, so they have something similar to what they have.
Thank you.
Or what they're requesting.
Thank you.
Ashley, were you wanting to say something?
Yes. I'd like to circle back on Pete's question around the timing of this as it relates to the traffic impact assessment. I'm concerned about the precedent that this sets and as it relates to the timing. So even if it gets scrapped, the traffic impact analysis comes back, it's problematic. We have still approved a very large variance from what the intention behind the P5B3 code is. So I just think that that's a historic change. It's 140%, I believe, increase on what is stated in current P5 height restrictions. So I'd like to circle back a little bit more on the timing. Like, why can't we wait until we get those surveys? I'm just curious, like if there's a reason, because I feel like we would have more data to inform the situation.
We can't spend money on the surveys until we know there's a reason to do it. And what that means is this.
Sylvia's coming up to help you out real quick before you get too far.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Well, first of all, our code requires a conceptual plan. There's some conceptual plans out there. There's two in particular. One is on the north end of town and one is on Farm Street. Both densified products that were approved because a concept plan is required, but have not been able to make it through the other traps. And therein lies the issue is, you're right, zoning is ethereal. It follows the land, period. It doesn't matter who the ownership is, it follows the land. And so part of the conversation within the B3 is the number of roads that would be required. We could go back and just call this a rezoning and you'd still have 7 variances that were required because the buffer that they're proposing isn't allowed in the B3. If they were to orient the buildings the other way, they'd have to move them to the property line. So you'd have variance number 1 there from the movement. Variance number 2 is the roads. I don't want to maintain roads in a private development, nor do I believe the residential customers should maintain roads in a private development. I don't want Target or whoever goes in here to tell me that they have sales down because we're not maintaining the roads. And the third is the setbacks and the proximity. We've spoken to the applicant, we've spoken to the development group about, 12 is going to be impossible. And staff can't support that after we heard the community. The rest of the conceptual plan, assuming they fit into what otherwise would be a B3 rezoning, is all theoretically doable, but there's nothing that it is going to be doable. I mean, I'd call somebody that's in the audience here who is still struggling through their plan that was approved several years ago by this board that still can't make it happen because of the drainage requirements and because of traffic, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing is in the B3 code, there is no parking requirement. So they could add additional buildings and push all of that parking somewhere else. And so those are harms that we're going to begin to try to undo on the guise that it's mobile and mobile friendly and family friendly and walkable and all this other stuff. Well, you still got to do something with the cars who come. You've still got to do something. And some of our residential areas are suffering right now because those cars have been pushed out onto the street. To Commissioner Parsons' point, even your subdivision is not a B3 subdivision. The B3 subdivision that is being built today is Pearl River. And that's where the trees were cleared, that everybody came up in arms. Even they have variances to some of the roads. So it is a doggone near impossibility to be able to address a drainage problem that our community has and ask a developer to put in that many streets. It is just not going to happen. As to a conceptual plan, that's where we are. That's the point. The council has, the commission has an option of just outright denial or denial to stay back in the P5 box.
I have a question for you. Look at the recommendation that the city is giving us here. Is as submitted. Okay? So we have so many conceptual things here. What is
The height.
the ask?
The height. So
Well,
they backed off
no,
on the impervious
it's not
cover.
just that, is it? I mean, because you got moving the thing down.
So it did. It is.
Yes.
So we have about we have about 4 items, and we say denied as submitted because the height is still included in the ask.
Okay.
Impervious cover has been moved back. A buffer has been created. Commercial to commercial has been moved. What is essentially going to be created on the site is multifamily, with the potential for a hotel site.
So I have a question, I'm jumping in.
Go ahead.
You okay?
Sure.
Okay. So isn't the way it's currently zoned is single family only, right?
It is currently zoned at P5 in the front for commercial and P2 rural
Right, and the PT rural is only single family,
is
right?
only single family.
And they're putting multifamily there, right?
The
as well, right?
proposal is to rezone to a P5 as
Okay.
dictated in the future land use map, which is also difficult because somebody mentioned, why aren't your plans up to date? Well, we got way cart before the horse with the B3 here. We're just now going to be looking at the comp plan next month. You don't have an adopted transportation plan. You don't have adopted drainage plan. You barely adopted the parks plan. So we have all of these things in ethereal land, but we went and adopted a development code. Well, that's kind of silly. That is very silly, and that is not planning 101. So we're backing off into that.
So wouldn't that argument be a good reason for us to say, let's wait until all these other plans are done? I mean, right now, it's sitting in a Lost Pine district in the character map.
It is sitting in a character map. It is not sitting in a single zone because the use, we don't have zones anymore in the B3 code. We don't have zones. The use, the future use is transitional housing, which is defined as multifamily, transitioning from an apartment to single family at some point.
I got it, but also looking at that, I'm glad you brought that up, because we've had several conversations as this commission about the fact that we need to start having more affordable housing in the city. And we've got apartment complexes popping up everywhere. And if I remember correctly, the rent from the multifamily that they're proposing to build is something like $1,900 a month or $1,300 a month. I can't remember what the number is. It's still more than, the 30% that homeowners really try to need to stay within in terms of a mortgage payment or a rent payment based on the average income of the citizens in this city. So I'm not really sure how.
I'd be careful with that, Commissioner Parsons,
Well, I
because
just
I'm
read
gonna
it.
I'm
I
gonna
just
show
read
you
it.
I'm gonna show you the statistics. So we have an inordinate amount of professional people here. More than 50% of our population has a college degree, and our combined income for a family is above $80,000. So we have a more affluent population than we believe. And so one of the issues, one of the questions that we struggled with the other day was, what is considered affordable? Is it $950 that the elderly people are paying on settlement? Because the federal government says that is affordable for our area, for an elderly person on a fixed Social Security income. So I
know, so where's the housing for those people?
for what people?
For people that are trying to live within that income.
So
I mean, it
the
seems to me,
difficulty,
Sylvia, and
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
willing to be wrong, is that what we're doing as a commission is really supporting multifamily development that doesn't necessarily focus on the professional.
so
We're not providing that kind of opportunity for people who work here, live here, who don't make that kind of money.
I absolutely don't disagree with you. The issue becomes what a landowner's rights are. And I can't force a landowner to build affordable housing.
I understand.
Again, on the north end, we have a development going in who is a complete dense development on the guise of, I need the return on investment to be able to provide affordable housing.
I understand. I'm just saying we keep using the term affordable housing so that people can move, but I don't see where we're providing that or even attempting to provide that as a commission, as we approve things.
That's not your role, Commissioner. That is the role of
Well,
council to set policy.
I understand, and if I read this correctly, it says that Bastrop, EDC, and large local employers to expand on a previous housing analysis to conducting surveys to collect local data regarding the income and housing preferences of Bastrop workers. Are we doing that?
We have that. That's information I shared at the last council meeting. And I'm not going to sit here and right the wrongs of the past, but you had an EDC who was able to fund affordable housing and chose not to. We incentivized development. We incentivized development that in some cases didn't even provide jobs, a job count. So we are in a hot mess that is an untangle to try to do.
So I have one more question. What has the developer done with the community? They've met with the community. I still see a lot of people here that are not happy. So what has been done in terms of communication with the community so that I can feel like I'm up here representing the community and what the community wants? Because that's not what I'm hearing.
Sure, and you'd have to ask the developer and the developer's representative. I know at the end of one of the last public hearings, we sat with the directly affected residents, 3 of them directly affected to the site, and therein lied the 50-foot buffer.
I got that part, and I get it that there are only a limited amount of number of people who are directly affected. But
Well, there's a limited amount of number who is directly in the city limits.
I proposed that the people that live in the city limits, the people that live here, should be the folks that are considered, not just the people who live immediately around the development. I think that.
Again, please, we appreciate the applause, but please hold it. Thank you.
And while I appreciate that, Commissioner Parson, that is not what the law says. The law that governs how I do my work, how you do your work, and how the city council does their work gives us a notice area of 200 feet. We went 3 times that buffer, 3 times in an attempt to have more public outreach.
All right, Jordan?
So, according to the future land use plan, basically the property is transitional residential, which we could go back and forth and say that that's only apartments and not commercial, or it could be interpreted to commercial. Where I'm seeing the disparity on this project is just the three middle lots. Because if the front lots are already zoned P5, then they're already zoned for commercial. There's nothing that we can do about that at all. That's already what it's pre-zoned unless they try to change the zoning. So now what we're left with is the other lots that they're requesting for a zoning change. And I would say that it's either going to be a P4 or a P5, which the only conflicting lots would be the ones in the middle, because the top half of the property is transitional residential, condos, townhomes, and
Not from the
and
audience,
apartments.
sir.
So the three middle lots are the ones that are proposed for hotel, the multifamily, and then the retail space.
You're referencing the future land use map, or you're
Yes.
referencing, okay.
They're trying to change everything to P5, and I'm also thinking on what you touched on, if we change the zoning, how would that affect if the transportation plan comes back or something? Also, another question, so if we do allow some sort of change in the stories for the buildings, are we able to specifically name what lots that applies to? Because I think it might be beneficial to consider not blanketing the entire PDD with an 8-story max or a 10-story max or whatever.
You are absolutely, and that's the beauty of the PDD. It
Yeah.
allows you to do that. It allows you a plug and
Okay,
play.
is that
as
currently what's
opposed to-
being proposed right now?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so only these, I'm
So-
assuming it's only the 3 lots that are going to be built.
I'm not sure, because I can't see that.
Yeah,
The,
okay.
that's what was done with Reed Ranch. There were apartment units that were closer to the backyards of residential.
Yes.
And so the commission decided to opted to cap the height there to 2-story, because 2-story is what is around that area, and move any 3 and 4 stories closer to 71.
Okay, so the north part of the property, that's transitional residential. That's what you would describe as transitional residential,
Trying to
correct?
turn the light on.
The top half of the property, the 3-story multifamily,
This piece here?
yes, the townhomes, all of that. That's
Okay.
transitional residential. There's nothing commercial about any of that, as far as retail or anything else, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that, therefore, as far as future land use that we've had since, I believe the future land use was created in 2016, that's all good, that's all golden.
I wouldn't say so. I would say from discussions with those people in the audience, one of whom is in the audience, is I think they intended to put the right blinker on but went left instead.
Okay.
But it is,
guess I was
it is
just
a
confused.
2016, it is a 2016 map.
I was personally confused when I was referencing that when I was referencing that future land use plan. This property was already set to be some sort of commercial or residential, transitional residential property when I read it. When I read that's currently on the Bastrop website, that's what it says.
And yes, and that's where I'm talking about the cart before the horse, in a rush to adopt a code, not making sure that your underlying plans are in place. If this was indeed a conservation plan district, then the future land use map should have continued to call it as rural.
Yes.
Not as transitional
Was
residential.
there ever any questioning of that plan before, or even before this was presented? Has the city talked about that plan to revise it?
We are bringing back the comprehensive plan. Planning Commission will begin working on the comprehensive plan in June.
Okay.
So the
But-
first step is a comprehensive plan to make sure what everybody wants to become. And then we work on future land use. And
Okay.
then we work on capital plans. And then we work on road, and then we work on water. So
Okay. Yeah, so with that, I guess my main point I wanted to make to everybody here and watching today is that this property had an intended use to be some sort of development for years. And anyone that goes online, which I just went on Google and looked up the future land use plan that the city of Bastrop has endorsed, it says that it is transitional residential, which, like I said, we can go back and forth and argue if we should add commercial or not, regardless. This proposal, this PDD that they're proposing is only the first step. They haven't even actually engineered or designed or put down any sort of planning to put in these buildings. This whole thing could get scrapped or changed or regardless, but I just believe that, that this property is gonna get developed. It's my role as, not only as a representative of our citizens, but also a representative of our Constitution and our private land rights as citizens of Texas and the United States to allow people to develop on their property. Anyone that's an American citizen, we have certain rights. We're not a dictatorship. We're not a true democracy. We should allow people private property rights. So now it comes to, okay, we got to make sure that we're not allowing someone to build something that is going to hurt our city or harm our citizens. That's where we have fire codes. That's where we have our transportation plan. That's where we're concerned with our nature and our tree preservation studies. So as long as all those boxes are checked off and they follow all the proper steps that our city put in place, then there should be, I shouldn't see any huge reason for concern if they are doing everything that is necessary and following all of the steps that we have in place. Another question I have, this is probably for the developer. So you have changed the location of the hotel site. Is that going to change your phase plan? Because phase one in your original plan you presented showed that you were going to develop the front portion of the property on 71 and then the portion of the property on Bucky's. Will that change at all? Is that hotel going to be prioritized, or is that going to be something that's considered later on?
Phase one does not change.
Okay.
It's the following phases. The way to show this, the loop road coming off of Pitt Street, right there, that first road that does the U and comes back to Pitt, that's an essential development item. That is essential infrastructure to allow phase one, the 3 lots, to develop. That facilitates, because utilities and infrastructure is now there, that facilitates the development along 71 and up the slope in this area where we can now adequately access sewer and water. So the answer to your question is yes, the phasing plan will change. Phase one will not change. Phase two may proceed as it's shown, and phase three.
I'm looking at the wrong paper. Okay.
And then phase three may proceed as shown. It could be the reverse. Phase two could be up here, and this could wait because we don't have a hotel flag yet. We don't have a convention center concept yet. We don't have a theater yet. Once that loop is in, then it makes phases 2 and 3 possible, but they could go in reverse order.
Okay. I think that's it for me.
Are you through? I'm sorry. I have another question for Sylvia.
So do I.
You were first? Yep. Okay. We've talked about fires, and we've talked about fire trucks, and we've talked about city staff being able to handle the fires. What happens if the fire gets out of control because it's right next to lots of pine trees, and we know what happens with pine trees? How do we get 1,300 cars out of that development without anybody getting injured? How do we get the people that are staying in the hotel, who knows how many of those folks that are going to get in their cars and try to get out of there to be safe? I just have concern about the traffic.
I don't disagree, Commissioner Parsons. Very similar to the concern in Tahitian Village. How do you get people out of there? And I would like to say we have emergency responders. We have emergency services contracts. The developer from day one, when they came in with a proposal higher than 5 stories, the first thing I said is you're going to have to pay for fire apparatus, and there will be an impact fee for you to be able to pay the personnel that goes along with that apparatus. That was on day one. That didn't assuage anybody. They continued to move forward. That is also going to be part of the traffic impact, that's why that connection out to 150 is so necessary. Even though it's an expensive part to this development, it is necessary. Once they get to a certain number of LUEs, they have to have a secondary exit, and it's not just the exit off of Pitt. That's
Got it.
how we move people. Now, they've still got to get past the TxDOT hurdle on 150. So, I mean, there's still a lot left to do. This is by no means a shovel in the ground tomorrow.
And that's why I keep suggesting that we might want to think about waiting to vote on the zoning change or moving forward with this project until we have more information about traffic, about trees.
Keith, did you have something? I saw your light on earlier.
Yeah, I've got a few questions. Was there any input from the school system at all? I know that commentary now is the fact that the classrooms are crowded and so are the schools. And
We meet with the school biweekly to
Okay.
give them updates as to what's happening, where it's happening, to help them stay ahead of their demographer.
do they have any comment about it at all?
No, everybody just kind of shakes in their boots.
How about the electricity? We always hear about brownouts and juice and EV vehicles being charged at night and
So this is Bastrop Power and Light territory. Bastrop Power and Light can and will serve. It is a potential revenue generator for BP&L. There are some other charging stations also going on at the Buc-ee's. Those are Mercedes charging stations. And to the point of Commissioner Parsons, Mercedes and Tesla charging stations are going in. That is the environment that we're in. So
well, as long as we have enough juice for everybody.
I'm happy to report BP&L's brownout and BP&L's outage is much less than even Bluebonnet. And I'm sorry, Josh Coy, who's probably listening.
The other question was, how many condos or apartments are going to be in there, and how many parking spaces do you allow per bedroom?
The standard code is 1.5 parking stall per bedroom, and I desperately want to head back to that as we do code revisions. But as of today, there is no parking requirement. How many did you propose?
We used in all the diagrams you've seen 1.5 parking spaces per unit. I think the first proposal that you saw 2 months ago had 1,100 units, so parking was 1.5 times 1,100. Today, with the reduced density and the changes that you've seen in the revised plan, we're down to, I think, 950. What's the number, Philip? 950. So it's 1.5 times 900. Now, that's typical. We use that in Austin and all over Texas. 1.5 units, parking spaces per unit is typical. Some more dense vertical projects at 1.25 or 1.3 because not everybody drives, and the work from home culture has existed for some time. So 1.5 is what we designed to here.
If there's overflow, where do they go?
Overflow is anticipated in the 1.5. There are guest spaces which would be reserved in certain developments, certain portions of the development, for example, to the north. It's a typical multifamily 3-story walk-up is what's shown, and there would be a certain number of handicap spaces. There would be a certain number, usually it's about 9% of the spaces for guests. But it's predicated and built into the 1.5.
Okay. We've all lived in apartment complexes at one time or another. We know what happens late
Yeah.
at night, and emergency vehicles try to get through and they're obstructed.
Right. Yeah. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Does anyone have anything else?
I do.
Go ahead.
Hello, Sylvia.
Hello.
Okay, I'm gonna get back to this, what's the ask? I'm still not sure in my mind, what's the ask from this situation? Because when it says as submitted, and we have multiple things to choose from.
The ask is a
Yeah.
P5 zone
Well,
across
let
the,
me- well,
okay?
We approved this thing once for the PDD and the zoning change, the way I understand it, and the the reason for that was in order for these people to be able to move forward, there are steps that have to be taken.
Yes.
In order to do that. There's no reason for these
Due
people to go
process.
spend, due process. No reason to go spend a whole bunch of money, you know. in this
And they may
situation.
still spend a whole bunch of money and still not be able to do
Exactly,
it.
yeah. So, but this is a process that we have to go through. So, I'm confused about what the ask is now because we did approve that and understand the reason that got jiggling away was the fact that notifications didn't seem to be exactly right. But city council sent this back to staff. They didn't send it back to PDC, P&Z. And so I'm trying to understand what that process is and why it's
back here.
back here now, because I was thinking when they did that, I thought, well, staff will take it, they'll take it and really hammer this thing down, they'll massage it, look at it, things like that before they bring it back. So has that happened? Or has it not?
No, because it was remanded back to staff, and we had an affected property owner within the 200 feet, which is super critical. We had a property owner, an affected property owner, who claimed to not have received their notice. And as opposed to argue whether a notice was received or not, we erred on the side of caution and remanded it back to Planning Commission, citing that the approval was void because I don't want to have that fight in court about an administrative oversight. So that's not going to be me. The ask is still within a PDD, although it's been watered down as such that if we were to ask for a straight rezoning, it would have some variances included with it. The ask today is a P5. They have a desire for 7 stories, and they have some variances from the B3 code, which is essentially the street block. It is essentially the street frontage, and it is essentially the street setback. The B3 code would not allow you to park this way. It would require less parking. So for the commission, what I'm going to say, the other nuances of the parking in the streets and those kinds of things, we're going to handle that through staff review and through drainage review and all that other good stuff. What is important for you is the zoning designation and the height. That's to be handled today. And I did want to address, I got a comment about the Lost Pines habitat and the toad. This area is under what is called red ant influence. This developer went through Fish and Wildlife already. There was toad studies that have been ongoing since 2018. And so that box has been checked and is on its way. So there was a comment about, okay, well, who handles that? Well, the Endangered Species Act, which is the whole kit and caboodle as to why we have the conservation district, says Fish and Wildlife administers. And Fish and Wildlife can grant an incidental take permit. And they're well on their way through that permit process because they did the studies, because of the red ant influence. There is one area that they cited before that has the potential for toad, and they are going to have to mitigate or protect for that. So this is, we've combed it. It's here, even if staff denies it, it's here because that's their due process. We have another denial that you'll hear probably next month where we've denied it because we can't make it work despite a concept plan being approved. We cannot make the drainage work. We cannot make the traffic work. It will come back to you because that is the applicant's due process.
I have a clarification. So when you were speaking to what the ask is, you made mention of 7-story. Isn't the actual ask 7, 8, and 12?
They have, at staff's behest, backed off of the 12 completely.
So even though the gentleman presented and spoke of that, that's not the ask. The
That would
ask
not be staff's recommendation to this commission to approve.
is 7-story max.
That is what the applicant has desired, 7-story max.
So again, to Gary's point, what we have in front of us doesn't reflect that.
Does your amended plan reflect that? No. And you do have the ability to amend anything that they ask for. That's the PDD. That is
Sure.
your ability to say, this particular building can't be higher than this. This particular building can't be higher than that.
Well, we can't do that unless we understand what they're asking for.
So just to, recite the trail of this, we did ask for 12 originally
Right.
on a certain site. We did ask for 8 across the board everywhere. In discussions with staff, since it was sent back to staff, in discussions with staff, we will agree and we would agree to less height. We've talked about 10, we've talked about 8, we've talked about 7. To cut to the chase, if this group recommends approval with a maximum of 7, we accept. But it's up to the group assembled here to make those conditions and send it forward with your recommendation up or down to council.
Thank you for that clarity.
And then really you only need 7 on the podium deck and then the hotel side.
There are 3 sites within the development which we're anticipating a podium deck and verticality, which will go to 7.
And so with the 7-story hotel and the placement in the southeast corner, is that where you're looking at, correct?
In the southeast corner, those 2 lots.
Right.
Yes.
All right. And I'm thinking that I know one of the things is the height of the hotel, right? We don't want to start allowing people just throwing up 9, 10-story hotels. That's not what Bastrop is about, not to me. But I think, maybe part of it is the look of it, right? You got this gigantic building that stands out above everybody, just out of curiosity with the inlay or how it's going to be set into the hill, what kind of height would it actually look like?
Well, we've designed several buildings such as this, around Texas. You're generally looking at 14-foot floor-to-floor, which is parking structure and the depth of the girders. Above that, minimally, you're looking at 12 feet floor-to-floor, so 5 times 12 plus 2 times 14. So within a umbrella of 90 feet, we could have this, capped.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else? Oh, yeah, and you just reminded me, we're Central Texas, not South Texas.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Yeah, I do. On the hotel, you're talking about 7 stories on the hotel?
Yes,
And
it's
the convention center would be 7 also across there?
the volumetrically. I mean, here we are. We're talking about architecture now when I wanted to talk about zoning.
Right.
But to discuss the specifics of a convention center, the flexibility of the space requires large spans. It's basically an open structure. It's a big box. In order to get the height that's required and the structure that's required and the below grade parking, which will be required, 1,000 people is 600 cars. So to get that density on a site requires you to tuck the parking underneath. So there again, we get back to the question that was asked about height. We can do that within 90 feet. It may not ultimately take that. It may take less.
Okay, yeah, so I was,
Possible, I
go ahead,
guess.
Gary.
Yeah, is it possible on the hotel and the convention center to be all one huge building? To get what you need for your development?
It could be one huge building, and I go back to the earlier statement. It is easier to find a flag that wants to work independent of the convention center. It is more difficult to find a flag convention center like an Omni or any number of Hyatt who actually are in the business of sponsoring conventions and conferences and working that into their model. So we right now have requested that, that we're talking to several people, hotels, about what should go there. The hotels themselves prefer not to be in the management game for a convention and conference center, the ones we're talking to. So hence 2 separate structures.
Got it.
Okay, so I know we've had a lot of dialogue, and I'm sure the citizens would like to get up here and speak, so we should get to that. I will say that you're probably going to hear a lot of concerns, right? There's concerns about traffic, the impact that it is doing to our community. You mentioned, you thought about Bastrop when you came in, but, it feels like, you got a crowded elevator and people are trying to say, hold that door and let me in. right? So please understand, sir, that you're going to hear some concern. You might have some favor for it, but like the people here love their town and they want to make sure that new things coming in aren't going to push them out.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and I would request at the very end an opportunity to comment or rebut, and I'd be here, obviously, to answer any questions you have.
Okay. So
Thank you.
do I need to officially?
Yeah, before we open, I just want to emphasize, just based on the recommendation and what options are before you. Obviously, you have the options to recommend denial, recommend approval. One that I would emphasize, which I think we touched on towards the end, is the option to approve with conditions. So as you listen to, some of the concerns that will come from the citizens, you could be thinking about what reasonable conditions could be applied to this approval that would allow this to work for you or to feel comfortable voting either which way, which I think is the intent and the flexibility of the PDD, which is why it's been primarily some of the projects that have been, unique in a sense have come through that vehicle of a PDD. So at this time, you can
Can we
open.
take a break?
You can
Yeah.
recess for
Can
5
we
minutes.
recess for 5 minutes, please? All right, it's 7:21. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Be back at 7:26, please. Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure that you had them all. You can go ahead and start if you have those, and we'll cycle
Yeah, I have
in.
them. Okay. All right. No, I had them. Yeah, let's go. All right. So first we have up to speak John T. Eberly Jr. Good evening, sir. Could you state your name and address and
My
you
name
have
is
3
John
minutes,
Everly.
please.
I live at 20 Lost Pines Avenue and have for the past almost 36 years. This August it will be. I just want to start with real quickly that it's sad that the architect gets all the time he needs and we each only get 3 minutes because, there's a lot to cover. I also wanted to point out that the purpose of you guys is to maximize community strengths and minimize weakness, protect property rights, and enhance property values, anticipate growth, and provide adequate public facilities and services, balance economic growth with quality of life issues, and avoid unmanageable concentration or disbursement of populations. We're trying to cram 600 residents in there, along with a big hotel. We already have so much trouble with our traffic situation. I face this every day as I drive a school bus for the district, and I see it every day because I drive right here on 21, 71, 95, and all around the area, AM and PM during the rush hours. We already have so much traffic here, it's unreal. Last week alone on the radio, I heard 3 different reports come in of accidents coming out of Buc-ee's. So now we're going to add, another 2,000 cars possibly with the hotel? It's just insane. Existing zoning P2 rule, let's not make it P5. That's going to be it's like giving them a carte blanche to build whatever they want to build. When we talk about that we're going to preserve the trees, I can tell you right now, I've been in construction off and on all my life. And when you start digging around a tree that's 120 feet tall, that's a heritage pine, and disturb the roots, that tree is going to die. And him saying you can dig them up and move them? No. You can't dig up a 60-year-old tree and expect it to live when you move it because you're not going to be able to do it. 50 feet area for us to have a little buffer up there off of Lost Pines, that's not enough. 50 feet is nothing. That's from here back to that wall? That ain't going to do it. Look, we know growth is going to happen, but it should happen within the existing laws, not change the rules in the middle of the game to suit big money. We've lived there all this time, and what's this going to do to our properties? Let alone what's it going to do to the view that you have coming in from Austin on 71. Right now, you look up and you see this green, lush hill. After this comes in, you're not going to see that green, lush hill. What's going to happen to all the wildlife? There's a lot of wildlife up there, along with the Houston toad. Again, I see where they're saying now that they'll back off to 80% coverage, but think about that. What homeowner can cover their property with 80%. I know when I built our pool, I had to submit a lot of documentation to the city and show that I wasn't covering any more land on my 1 acre than I had in the past, that the pool originally had, and what I was putting in didn't cover up more.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Eberly. We appreciate your words. Your
See?
time's up.
Cut me off.
I'm not trying to cut you off, sir. It's just what we have. Thank you. Everything is considered. We're not trying to be fair. All right. I mean, we're sorry. We're not trying to be unfair. And how dare y'all try to twist me up on that? I'm not going for that. Y'all know better than that. Y'all know I'm not like that. Cut it out. All right. Miss Donna Eberly, we have you as well. You don't wish to speak, but she is in opposition of... Well, I mean, if she chooses to speak, she can. We're not going to deny her, right? She wrote up something. I don't want to deny her the 3 minutes. But she said she was in opposition and did not choose to speak.
What I would suggest, just in cooperation and to get points across, is that she could yield her time to Mr. Eberly just to finish his comments.
So there you go. Thank you, Resin. So now you have 3 more minutes. I thought you were doing just fine.
Well, you know, when you got 3 minutes, you're trying to get
Yeah, I know.
everything
You're
in,
trying to cram it in.
Yeah. So here's a point that she had. When we bought our home about 35 years ago, we bought it with the prospect of knowing our zoning and what was around us. How is this fair to any citizen when zoning waivers can be given out? What we have in our area is sacred to us. What's going to keep somebody, if we change the zoning, somebody else up there on our street even applying for a zoning change and put a fourplex up next to us like they did in Austin? Have you guys seen what they're doing in Austin? The old neighborhoods, they go in and they take a little cottage, turn around and put a sixplex up. It's just horrible. Let's see what else I got here. We talked about the setback. And I mentioned the Houston toads. We have concern about that, guys. It's just, but the traffic is the biggest thing. Not only the trees and the wildlife, but the traffic. This is going to be a nightmare. It's already horrible with Buc-ee's. It's crazy. You guys know how many traffic accidents there are. And then again, the fire. Anything over 5 stories, our fire department can't handle it. It just can't. And then, of course, all those people in that area and the police having to get in there. Why would we approve over 5 stories when we can't handle anything more than that? Thanks for the additional time.
Thank you. You're welcome. All right, next up we have Stuart Bridges, who wishes to speak in opposition. Mr. Bridges, please state your name and address. Thank you.
My name's Stuart Bridges. I live at 12 Lost Pines Avenue. We're the closest house to this development. We would be 50 feet away from it, basically. There are so many angles to this issue that it seems that this is being rushed through without much consideration for traffic and environmental surveys. It should be on this developer to provide this information to us before we even move forward. It only makes sense. I know, and I'm fairly certain that you know, that this is absolutely the wrong place for urban density for this project. It's this wrong. It's not right. The 2011 fire burned 32,000 acres of pine forest right up to this site. And like you guys mentioned earlier, what happens if there's another fire, if or when there's another fire like that? How do you get all those people out of that corner? It was a mess before. I mean, the traffic around there when the fires were getting close to us was horrible. They had the Austin Police Department out there directing traffic because the city of Bastrop couldn't handle it. Experts have said that it'll be 100 years before that area is fully recovered. This area is known as the Lost Pines Habitat Conservation Area. Has anybody spoken to those people about the conservation? It's known as the Lost Pines Habitat Conservation Area. Have we had any conversations with them? Why would we take such a sensitive and recovering area and just destroy it? Because that's what will happen. I've been in the commercial construction business for 40 years. Most of those 40 years, I've built developments just like this. I built Burleson Crossing, I built Dry River District in Kyle. Right now, I'm building Sawyer Ranch and Dripping Springs. Those are on I-35, Highway 71, and Highway 290 out in Dripping. There was not any public outcry about any of them. Just the buildings alone and the parking garages will cause tremendous damage to that hill. That doesn't hold a candle to what the underground utilities will do to that hill. Storm sewer, sanitary sewer, domestic water, connecting everything, connecting to the city. That hill's gone, and you guys know it. I know it. I will guarantee you that hill is gone. The pine tree's worst enemy is the pine beetle. The pine beetle attacks a pine tree when it gets stressed. So for them to claim that they're going to save the heritage pines and ask for 80-cent impervious cover concrete is insane. That just makes no sense whatsoever. And I won't even hit on the traffic. You guys know what that's like. If you guys put your name on this and approve it, every citizen in this city is going to know. Okay? And they're not going to be happy. If this project is forced through, each one of you that voted for this owes us an explanation in a public setting. Is the developer driving this, or are you listening to us, the citizens of Bastrop?
Thank you, Mr.
I promise
Bridges.
you, 80% of the citizens do not want this. Their well-being is your
Bridges.
primary responsibility. One more time.
Mr. Bridges,
Push this
I'm not
through.
trying to be rude, but please respect everyone else's time. Thank
One
you.
more thing, the architect should not have a rebuttal to our comments. That's not right.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, next we have Catherine Albers. She does not wish to speak, but she is in opposition of item 3B. Next up, we have Michael Egan. He does wish to speak in opposition of item 3B. Hello,
Good
sir.
evening.
Please state your name and address, please.
Good
Thank you.
evening, and thank you for the opportunity to address you guys. My name is Michael Egan. I live at 135 Carriage Court. I'm a relatively new resident of Bastrop, having lived here for just a year. I came down here just captured by the essence of the city. I love it. I love everything it stands for. I'm going to come at this with a little bit different perspective. What you are contemplating, I have lived. I spent 46 years living in Dallas area. I lived in such neighborhoods as Flower Mound, Plano, Frisco, Richardson. So I've watched what has happened, what is beginning to happen here. Most of the points have been hit on already, so I won't reiterate them. You do not want this type of development at this time, at this site. That's all I can say, because the promises will be unfulfilled, expectations will not be met. What will be left in the wake is infrastructure overload. Taxes will remain on the steady climb, they will not be abated, and crime and various other negative aspects of the community we all love will seriously be affected. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next up we have Carolyn Wigington. She wishes to speak in favor of item 3B. Please state your name and address. Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Carolyn Wigington, and I've been a resident of Bastrop for 35 years, and I have been on numerous boards, and I was on the historical board. I live in the historic part of Bastrop, and I moved here for the same reasons as you did. I love it here. And I feel like Bastrop is growing regardless of anything. It's going to grow. Now, do we want to have an architect who has a good reputation and can build something that's going to improve the environment here? Or do we want to have, we have numerous examples of things around Bastrop that were not good. Now, the other thing is that when it comes to pines, when I lived in Rosanke, I had the granddaddy pine tree of all lobby pines in Bastrop, and it died. Lobby pines, they don't live a very long life. If you look around this next season, you're going to see a lot of them that are going to die just because of the heat. We need trees. Pine trees are not the best for, they grow rapidly, and so for the first 15 years of their life, which most of the ones that have grown since the fire are a good size, but they don't even begin to help the environment. Now, I believe that we can still preserve that characteristic, but I think it's important that we look at this, and I'm very much in favor of it so far, although I think we're probably going to need a bridge across 71 to deal with the infrastructure. Traffic is a problem, but I do think we ought to wait and not vote on this tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Wigginton. All right, next up we have Ian Reichard-Watts, and they wish to speak in opposition of item 3B. Welcome back. Please state your name and address again.
Thank you. I'm Ian Reichard-Watts. I'm at 13 Lost Pines Avenue, right next to the revised hotel location, actually. It's just on the other side of my property line. Not that that matters, because the topics I have, my concerns, really don't have anything to do with my property other than the health of my pine trees. Some new things that you haven't heard from me, because I may be a broken record at this point, but last week I was hearing a whole lot of great news, guys. They're agreed to go under 5 stories from many people, actually, in the city, and I was pretty surprised this week to find the agenda packet posted and see that the PDD itself was not changed at all. It still says 8 stories max in every sub-district of there, 9 stories in one of them, with the 12-story, exception in there. It still has the 80 to 90% impervious cover. And so if the devs are willing to stay 5 stories max, I feel like the PDD packet, which is the only thing that really matters with this, right, because the design isn't actually what y'all are approving. It's the packet that has the tables with those variances and that information. So if that isn't been updated, y'all are going to be approving the old thing, right? And if you're approving something with a bunch of vocal changes, I feel like we should see that in writing as well, because how are they going to be held to these changes if it's not in writing, right? Another thing on the traffic, I completely agree that the traffic impact analysis should happen before the rezoning. It seems like it only makes sense. Sure, it's expensive, but so is buying 31 acres of partially commercially zoned property with the intent to build a massive complex like this. That's a very expensive undertaking. They should be doing the full due diligence. That includes the tree study, that includes the traffic study. All of that should happen on the developer's dime before any permanent changes like this rezoning happen, right? It doesn't make sense for something that could be temporary, like, oh no, traffic impact analysis figured out that obviously this is a terrible spot for this. Heck, it took me so long just to even get here, waiting in traffic at the Buc-ee's. It's just going to get worse, right? So I feel like maybe they should shoulder that before we make permanent changes that ride with the property for forever. And then, of course, there's the trees.
He got 30 seconds.
Okay. Pearl River was told to stop in the middle of it. They were caught while they were raising and scraping that entire land, and they all decided it doesn't matter, and they continued doing it anyway, right? So all that tells me is that the fines need to get raised quite substantially before we approve any more large projects like this, or it's going to keep happening. If the fine is an acceptable business expense, then it means nothing and it has no teeth, right? Another thing is that the loblolly pines are not short-lived. We have multiple trees well over 100 years old on our property. A lot of them live to be 200. That is not a trash tree. These are heritage trees. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Please, thank you. All right, next up, we have Shannon Day. She wishes to speak in opposition of item 3B. All right, please state your name and address. And you
Hi.
have 3 minutes.
My name's Shannon Day. My address is 13 Lost Pines. Like Ian said, we abut the revised location of the 12-story hotel. Most of my feelings on this subject have already been spoken on by many of you tonight, by many other people in the audience, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse, saying what we're all concerned about, what we're all worried about. I do agree that this will set a precedent. That's something in my job, whenever someone asks for something, it's, okay, hang on, is this going to set a precedent? Because once you start down a slippery slope, it's hard to pump the brakes, like once you're already going in that direction. We already know the PDD did a change. They're asking for 8 stories everywhere. We are all getting hung up, I think, on the design concept, the 12-story hotel, the convention center, the affordable housing, theoretically, but there's nothing stopping the people that own this land from turning around and selling it to the highest bidder the day after this gets approved. So I just think that that's something to consider, because anyone who acquires this land in the future, all they're beholden to is the 8-story PDD. And so I think that what we're being shown is a gross underestimation of what could potentially happen in that space. Let me see. The developers themselves haven't reached out to the community. They sent Steven, their architect, to talk to us, but we haven't spoken to any of them. I don't know if that's something to expect, but something to note. And yeah, the last thing I want to speak on is just about the loblolly pine trees. An arborist from the A&M Forest Service explained it. When you look at these trees, picture a wine glass sitting on top of a dinner plate. The parts of the tree you can see are the wine glass, and the root systems are the dinner plate. They're very shallow, and they're very wide. So next time you're taking a U-turn at Tahitian Village, there's a gas station there on the right, and there's a pine tree in the parking lot. And there's concrete around it 5 feet in every direction, and that tree is dead. So the talk of sparing the heritage trees, yeah, it's great in theory, but if you put impervious cover right up to the trunk, they're gonna die, a month, 2 months, 3 months later, and then the city is not getting the fine for the heritage trees either. And I do agree that that fine needs to increase, because if it's cheaper to just tear the trees down and pay for it than to respect the land that was there in the first place, then I don't know, I just think that that could use some improvement, as well as the future land use map, but I know that's complicated because of the comprehensive land use map, but any chance to address that would be appreciated by everybody, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up we have Jeff Bachneck. Did I say that correctly?
Surprisingly, yes.
All right. So he wishes to speak in opposition of item 3B. All right, can you give us your name again, please, and your address?
You already did that. It comes against my time one. Anyway, I'm Jeff Bachnick. I live over in Riverside Grove. I want to speak against this, and on a number of reasons. I moved here from Cedar parking lot. I'd rather, and we moved to Bastrop because we didn't like to see what was happening in Bastrop. And with this type of development and that monstrosity out on 969, the scrape, which I refer to as the big scrape, I mean, that's what we're looking for. You mentioned that, we should honor property rights. Look at the people that live on Lost Pines Road. Their property values are going to plummet. 50 feet? Seriously? That's not much of a buffer, even if it's planted. I mean, I live not that far from the water tank over there in Bob Bryant Park. In the wintertime, you can hear that thing. It's like we're in an industrial park. The city promised to plant trees to minimize the damage that they did. That would never happen, and that was the city lying to us. Somebody's in it for $1, really? Fire department, they said one fire truck. They're going to have 3 buildings that they'd like to have 8, 10, we'll hedge it a little bit. You're going to need more than one fire truck. You're going to need staff to clear those floors. I know that. I used to be a fireman in a past life. The staffing for that's going to increase. Sure, the fire chief should be able to tell us that. You go look at a hotel over there by Walmart. It sits there out there in the middle. It's 4 stories. The darn thing's a monstrosity. And they want to build at least twice that, if not 3 times that size. Go take a look at that. Is that the gateway that you want to have to a Tree City Bastrop? Yeah, development's coming, but you guys can limit it and make it reasonable, all right? That's what we're asking for, is make it reasonable, tie it into the existing homeowners. Those people are gonna lose their shorts. Are you guys gonna call? 30 seconds. I'm watching. Are you guys gonna kick in the money for their lost property values when you build this there? The trees. I love how they're going to mediate for the toads. We're going to make them sewer toads now. We're going to put in a culvert and let them crawl through a sewer pipe. Really. I mean, this thing is not planned well. It's not going to do well for us, and it's not the type of development we really want for our city.
Thank you, sir, for your time. All right. Next up, we have Pablo Serna. He wishes to speak in opposition of item 3B. Welcome back to the podium.
Thank you, Pablo Serna, 1104 Hill Street. We'll read this, it'll be faster. So I want to talk about misdirection, okay? If you're feeling a bit confused, it's because it appears to me by design, okay? What's at stake? The applicant is seeking a zoning change, zoning being the key word, from place type 2 rural, and you should look up what rural will limit you to, that will not put any motels on it, to place type 5 core. You need to understand that, because that does not come from the future land use map. That comes directly from the place type map in 2019. So how has this been presented? Have you seen a 2019 place type map? I haven't. I didn't see it in the exhibit package. Maybe you've seen it separately. The place type map, not the future land use map, codifies the type and extent of development for every property. So remember that. Future land use map is just a vision. Has there been any discussion about the 2019 character district map? You really should read those sections. They're there. They're in the B3 code. I have not seen it in the exhibit package either. It's another map. The character district map captures the vision put forth by the people of Bastrop for each of the areas around the city of Bastrop. I highly encourage you to read the section on this district called the Lost Pines. They picked that word for a reason. What I have seen from the city staff is a blatant disregard for all of the work of many people over many years, going back 10, to prepare this community for the type of development we knew for many years was coming. We're not stupid. They should be helping you better understand what the people approved through late night meetings, through weekend presentations, prior staff work, council work. A lot of work went into this. They're in those documents. But if the city staff is showing you one thing, they're doing you a disservice, in my opinion. They're giving you a lot of misdirection, and they're doing everybody in the city of Bastrop a disservice. Is the plan finished? Was B3 code the end of it? No, we knew it was not the end. But it was a pretty damn good start, and I hope you don't gut it by doing something stupid.
Thank you, sir, for your time. All right, up next, we have Georgianne Shockley. She wishes to speak in opposition of item 3B. Did I get that correct?
Yes.
All right. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Georgianne Shockley. I live at on East Riverside Drive. My husband and I moved here 4 years ago last month. We moved from Austin, about 5 miles from the Domain. Crime, traffic, homelessness were all a part of why our family wanted us to get out. And so we chose to move here. We were very dismayed that there was a plan for a Domain-like thing being talked about here, especially where it's located. We already have a movie theater and we have a convention center. May not be as big as you'd like it just yet, but it could be changed. It's maybe not that you were bringing this project here, it's just that, because we know growth and progress happens, but it's where you were putting it. And calling it the gateway to Bastrop, to me, is just very insulting to this town. What was presented to the people of Bastrop was not aesthetically pleasing at all, and I was disheartened that you would even think to take all of those wonderful trees away for that. Trees, the toads, the birds, the wildlife, and we the people need the trees. What trees provide, cement does not. What was shown in the presentation that you wanted to be called the Gateway to Bastrop, I think you ought to put a sign there. On one side, it'll say Gateway to Austin. On the other side, it'll say Gateway to Houston. At the last meeting I attended, which was a city council meeting, I gave each one of the council members a picture of the hills that I see when I come home. It is a beautiful sight with so many trees. I call it the Gateway to the Pines. So I really hope that you would reconsider what you're thinking about zoning for on that hill. And especially, also, I'd like to mention about the traffic. Traffic is awful. If you're coming from Austin back to Bastrop, it's really terrible. If you add more people to the hill, it's going to be even worse. So please reconsider what you're thinking about zoning for, and don't take away those lovely trees.
Thank you. All right, up next we have Robert Phelps, and he wishes to speak in opposition of item 3B. Please state your name again and address. You have 3 minutes, sir. Thank you.
Howdy, I'm Robert Phelps. I live at 16 Lost Pines Avenue. I've lived there for 30 years. I've been in Bastrop since '77. I've seen a lot of changes come through. One thing I'd like to mention, they keep talking about the drainage for the rainwater. They're talking about putting it underground. So they're already talking about building a 7-story hotel, 2 stories underground, and then they're going to put water underneath that. I'm not an engineer by any means, but I don't understand how you can build a 7-story building above a tank. It just doesn't make sense to me. And also they keep talking about saving all the trees and everything, but I don't know if y'all noticed, but even in their video of them going around the whole thing, they didn't show a single pine tree. I just wanted to point that out. Thank y'all very much.
All right, thank you, sir. Short and sweet. All right, Jennifer Phelps, you wish to speak in opposition as well. You know, he can.
I'm the talker in the relationship.
Do you need his time?
Possibly.
All right, please. All right, let's go. All right, thank you.
So I have also lived at Lost Pines Avenue for 30 years. We raised our family there. We have a huge traffic problem as everything has come in. It takes me forever to get just onto 71, just from the stop sign next to on Arena Drive, or American Legion, whichever that is called now. I would really caution you from changing that zoning and putting more people in that area. We were here during the fires in 11. We were evacuated. The fire line was put at 95. So the hill was okay to burn. So maybe if they put more people there, I guess maybe the hill won't be burning now. But we do have an issue with fire. We've had a couple fires break out on that hill. We only have one way in, one way out, our neighborhood as it is. But you put more people there, you're going to need more ways out. And you can imagine putting everybody in a bottleneck trying to get out of there. It'll be bad enough just in normal traffic or normal days trying to get out of there. Also, we talked a lot about statistics and about the money everybody, what is our median money range and our college education, et cetera. What is the statistic about multi-family homes and the rate with crime? Right now, my neighborhood doesn't have crime. We're just a little old neighborhood. We look out for each other. You start putting apartments all around us. Is our crime rate going to start climbing? And I'm going to have to start chaining everything down? So there's a lot of things to think about. Growth is fine. I can understand growth. I also can understand that there is a place where the pine trees burnt right down 71, maybe 2 miles, and clear area. Let's put the convention center down there. Let's put some family homes down there. So there was land out here, but it's not the view that you get from that hill. And that's what was wanted. And so we'll mar our hill forever for a little bit of money. And that's all it is. It's money. And I understand they own the property, but we are residents, and we're long-term residents. We haven't just come here or don't even live here like a lot of the folks that these homes will be built for.
Thank you so much. All right, this last one. I have Linda Curtis.
She
does not wish to speak.
She does.
Oh, you do now?
Yeah, she came up and she changed her mind. She does wish to speak.
Okay, she's in opposition of item 3B. Can you please give us your name and your address, please, ma'am?
Yes, sir. I'm
Thank you.
Linda Curtis. I live on South Shore Road, just outside the city. I'm speaking for myself and the League of Independent Voters of Texas, which is a 501c4 nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. And I'm going to try not to cry because it's ugly seeing a 73-year-old woman cry. But I have the privilege of living in the piney woods that did not burn down in 2011. It's just up the hill from this gateway thing. Okay, this is a heartless plan to put this thing in the middle of some of the little bit of piney woods, dense piney woods where there are toads, Houston toads, without a care in the world. It makes me want to cry. I got one more thing to say. I cannot bear hearing the whining and gnashing of teeth about the B3 code. The people in this city got together over a year and a half. 1,500 people deliberated on changing the code and taking a very bold step towards new urbanism here in Bastrop. You know, there are things with the B3 code that can be, changed and fixed and made better. But I don't want to hear the whining and gnashing of teeth by you-know-who actually told me when somebody cursed on the way in because they're so angry about this project. I smiled at him, and she told me, it's not right to smile. Now, don't be smiling. What is going on here? When you reject the B3 code and you gnash your teeth constantly about it, basically what you're saying is that the people of this city do not have the right to plan their city. I'm sorry, the home rule cities in Texas, until the legislature really gets a hair, do have the right to plan their cities. So stop bashing the citizens of Bastrop, the city of Bastrop. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that is all that we have. So I will bring the public hearing to a close, right, at 8:05. All right. Do we need to take a break? Do we need to vote on the motion? What do we need to do?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, before you do, can I say something?
I guess so.
All right, well, thank you. Okay, so I just would like to kind of give my little input on it. I'm fifth generation here, right? Bastrop means so much to me. Bastrop raised me, and I feel like now I'm doing a part to help raise the new Bastrop. Me personally, I've watched the growth and the impact of the traffic, especially in this area, because I travel this spot multiple times a day. I don't think adding more to this area, or not the area, this close in proximity to downtown really helps, right? It really congests. I'm not saying that we don't need housing or anything like that, or we couldn't use a hotel with a convention center or something along those lines. I truly think it needs to be planned strategically. This area in particular, it does bring about a lot of concerns. We're already steadily working on our flooding plan, and this is going to be built on a hill. 80% impervious cover, that's a lot of concrete. It's a lot of concrete at an angle, right? Small amounts of rain can turn into something big. We have other plans here in town that it could affect that I'm not sure if they are aware of. That land it's clay, so a lot of digging can have an impact. There's a lot to be considered, I hope that the commissioners would take those things into consideration. I'm not saying this to sway you yay or nay. I'm just giving my point of view about this project. Again, I don't think it's something that we should push away, but I'm not sure if this is the best location for it.
And on that note, I'd like to make a motion.
Resin, do we need to specify, do we need to know what she's making, or she can just shoot what she thinks she needs to do? I just want to make sure, because there's been some confusion about the wording, so I want to make sure we straight before she goes ahead.
Yeah, I would entertain the motion as heard first, and if there needs to be an adjustment to that, we can make that after hearing what the initial motion is.
I'd like to make a motion that we not vote on this tonight, that we wait until the traffic impact study is done and until the tree study is done, which you're going to have to pay for anyway, so that we have all the information we need to make a more informed, educated decision as a commission. I can't feel comfortable voting for a change tonight, a zoning change tonight without that information. So that's my recommendation.
And just for clarification, I understand that as tabling the item until you.
Yes, thank
receive
you.
that.
I'd like to table the vote tonight.
Okay, we have a motion to table the vote. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Can we call for roll, please, Alondra? What you got, Riz?
Is there a date certain at which we can table this until, or just?
I'd like to table it until they get the studies done. I don't know if that works or not in terms of a proposal.
So will we be able to do that, and at least they can come back with the date for us? Is that possible? Okay. So do we need to redo the motion under those pretenses? Okay. Thank you.
I think it's good and it's understood what the ask is from the developer, as far as you understand what they're asking for.
I understand that. I have concerns about the action. It's our understanding that the action is to recommend the council approval or recommend the council disapproval. It goes forward to council regardless of a motion to table, is our understanding.
It can go to council still, but if they are uncomfortable with the information has been provided, they can be provided that information before making a recommendation. So do we have a date certain that you would like to suggest?
How long does a traffic study normally take?
6-8 months.
How long have y'all been?
Quick question. Question is, are we stepping outside of our preview to do something like this? There's a process in place to do this, and that's what the PDD is.
No,
not-
your real action is approve or deny. That's your real action,
I'd like to
because
make a motion that we deny approval of the,
that's a legal motion,
okay.
the other one.
I'd like to make a legal motion that we deny approval of the zoning change.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Did you catch who that was, Alondra? Okay, all right. Can we call for roll, please?
Yes, Ishmael Harris,
Yes.
David Barrow,
Yes.
Ashley Henson,
Yes, I approve to deny.
Jordan Scott,
No.
Gary Moss,
No.
Patrice Parsons,
Yes.
Keith Alborn.
Yes.
And Scott Robichaux.
Yes. All right, let your record show we have 5 yes, 2 no's. So, all in favor or not all, but 5 to 2 in favor of.
6 to 2.
6 to 2, sorry. Yeah, it is.
we
My
have
bad.
8
Thank you,
tonight.
thank you. 6 to 2 in favor of denying.
So
Please, again, no claps.
just
Thank
for
you.
clarification, that will be recommended to
City
council, and they
that
will
we deny the.
correct, and they'll
Proposal.
consider the action at the next council meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. On to item 4, please. No, of course not.
Double check with Doc, see what he says. I just wanted to let everyone know here that the city council meeting will be May 14th for anybody interested. Next Tuesday, May 14th is the first reading of this for city council.
Kennedy, do we have any future development-related items?
For this meeting,
No. Okay.
just maybe a reminder that the next meeting we have the training with resin, so make sure you all are all in attendance.
Okay. All right.
Yes, sir. How dare you?
I gave him a pass. You don't have to explain. I got you, man. I got you.
Your chair's got you. It'll be live streamed like always, so you can just watch it the next day or the day after, just kind of like, and if you have any questions, let us know.
All right. So on to item 4B. Excuse me, can you mind taking the conversation outside, please, so we can wrap up our meeting? Thank you. Appreciate you all coming out tonight. All right, item 4B, individual requests from planning and zoning commissions that particular items be listed on future agenda. No group discussion allowed. Do we
y'all
have anything?
any, besides the one, we still have the ones from last meeting.
Right.
Just with this one coming up so short and being so specific.
you
We knew
didn't-
this
we
meeting
didn't
would
have
be
time.
long,
It's
so
understandable. But don't be slacking on the 30th, though.
Could you remind us?
I will be.
Could you remind us of the recommendations that we asked for last time, please?
She's gonna pull them up. There's quite a few. I don't have them. It should be in the meeting minutes.
Yes,
I don't have them
got
pulled up.
you
My
right here.
apologies.
Yes.
Jordan, did you have something you want to talk about next meeting?
Yes. Who is in charge of setting the comprehensive plan or setting the future land use plan? Is that our board?
You're a recommending body to council, but they have final approval.
Okay, for future land use. Okay. I would like to see that we revisit the future land use plan and update it to what we currently want and or have.
That's a part of that we're already working on that.
Okay.
Like Ms. Livia said, we will be starting that about next month,
Got it.
starting the overall process. And so coming up, starting next month, y'all will be meeting twice monthly again, because it'll be going through that process.
Y'all just love us so much.
Get to see more of us.
All right. Okay, so do we have anything else we want to add to the agenda? Was everyone able to check the minutes from last meeting to see what's on there? Yes. Okay, good deal. All right.
One thing.
Go ahead.
I would like we're going to change one of our council members, and so that's obviously going to change the makeup of our city council. I would like to see what their vision and goal is for the next couple of years that could potentially have ramifications for the future of Bastrop, so that we can support them if needed.
Okay.
You see that happening? What do you mean?
All right, on to item 5. Y'all gotta look on your. Oh man, where are my classic people that's ready for item 5? She's sitting out there in the audience.
We need a motion.
I need a motion. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? All right, thank y'all. Bastrop, have a great night.